Meanwhile, the government of Somaliland has arrested a number of people and confiscated 9 vehicles used to transport illegally imported khat from Ethiopia. This is a result of a 1-month ban imposed by the government on the import of the herbal stimulant from Ethiopia and subsequent chewing as part of COVID-19 coronavirus spread prevention measures. The government has reversed the ban before the lapse of the deadline on 17th of May 2019. What is the fate and the legality of the government's decision to impound these vehicles? We now have lawyer Guled Ahmed live from his Hargeisa office. Guled, welcome to the program. What is your comment on the government move to impound private motor vehicles and giving it to the police service?
What happened here is that the government banned temporarily importing Khat to Somaliland in relation to COVID-19. But the thing is, there is no law banning or prohibiting usage or importing of Khat in Somaliland. Therefore, there was a very big legal issue when it comes to the lawyer's side, or how the government will be handling the issue in absence of a law that is related to Khat. Then what happened is that the government has started prosecuting people and then convicting them. Such process was questioned by some lawyers. But the problem that happened, much worse than that, was that the police started taking the vehicles and using them while the appeal process hasn't exhausted. In our legal system, when the first court convicted someone, the person who has been convicted has a right to appeal to the higher court, and that goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Unless that process ends, you cannot enforce and execute a judgment, and that's the mistake that has been made by the police in taking over these vehicles.
The ban has now been removed. What happens to the people who have been arrested amid the pandemic and the threat of the imported vehicles, which were source of livelihoods for many people around the country?
Into the many people who are imprisoned, and in this era of COVID-19, it is not advisable to put many people in prison, and therefore the government convictions was 2.5 years to 3 years, and that's very harsh. But on the other hand, the government was taking over their vehicles, forfeiting and confiscating them. That is a livelihood of the people, but also is a property right. And thirdly, you cannot execute and enforce decisions while the process of appeal is in place. That is disrespect to the judicial process and rule of law. I believe, and I think many other people will agree with me, the way the government handled this issue wasn't well thought, and listed to say it wasn't based on the laws of the country.
Can I ask you this? Does the executive branch of government have the ability to confiscate vehicles and give it to the police, for example, or any other government agency for that matter?
The government has no authority to make laws. The executive branch has no authority to make laws, and it doesn't have authority to act as a court. There is a separation of powers. That's why we have a parliament. Therefore, anything that should be prohibited by law, and the prosecution process should be set by law as well and enforced by the courts. The manner the government handled this issue, first and foremost, is they acted as if they are a parliament, and secondly, they haven't weighted the judicial process. The judicial process takes a time. There are process, and that prosecution process needs to be respected, because the rights of people is at stake. People are appealing; they're not happy with the case, with the court judgments. They believe it was arbitrary then. And there are avenues, judicial avenues to challenge. And if you change the status quo, that would be a problem to the appeal, because the appeal court will be hearing a case while the subject matter doesn't exist as it used to be before the first court made the judgment. This is a huge concern as it relates to the process of law and the judicial process of Somaliland.
And now on Somaliland's Independence Day, today marks the 29th anniversary since Somaliland became a state of its own. What is the state of adherence to the rule of law in the country?
First and foremost, let me say congratulations to the people of Somaliland for this day. And secondly, we should never forget to ask ourselves why Somaliland declared independence in the first place, why they did that in 1991. And why the government of Somaliland, the state of Somaliland, the separate existence of Somaliland is in place. The answer to that question lies to the Constitution. And the principles in the Constitution include equality, justice, protection of freedoms and human rights, property rights, and separation of powers. We believe, and there are people who today, and I among them, there are people who today signed a declaration, call it People's Declaration, which are asking these questions and saying, okay, we have done huge work, we achieved a lot, but the way the government is handling issues is not consistent with the ideas and principles in the Constitution of Somaliland and what the people of Somalia wanted in the first place when they declared the independence of the Republic of Somalia. Therefore, the government has to go back to the Constitution, respect the agreement and the social contract by applying equality, justice, rule of law, constitutionalism, and respect of human rights. Letting people who are in prison release it, but also apply, eliminating corruption, nepotism, and clan-based politics.
Do you think that it is time for both citizens and the government to examine themselves after 29 years of existence and asking themselves what went right and what went wrong?
29 years are a very long time. The people who were born in 1991 and after are the majority of Somalilanders. They are estimated to be 65 to 60% of the people of Somalia. They have every right to say, where are we heading to? This is our future. And for example, let me give a simple example. The people who were born in 1991 and afterwards were never able to vote for member of a parliament. They were never allowed to go to polls to vote a representative in the parliament. Because the last parliamentary election happened for the lower house of parliament in 2005, and they were not eligible at the time to vote, and that's 15 years. We were never elected our upper house of the parliament. These are very serious questions related to democracy and rule of law, employment, justice. These issues need to be discussed seriously, and that's why 29 years is a very long period of time.
Lastly, what does the future hold for Somaliland?
I am very optimistic. I believe things will improve. That's why we are part of the signatories and people who are advocating for better Somaliland. We wanted to question and examine ourselves, and we believe through that examination and questioning, we'll be able to come up with a better future, a better plan. But really, what I would like to suggest for the government of Somalia, the president and the rest of his team, is to listen to people, accept the examination, and critically to be examined by others, people to point fingers and tell what's wrong with the government, because only through criticism, challenging, and examination of expression, a country can progress and sustainable development can exist. And we believe democracy and human rights are the two main reasons the people of Somaliland decided to be separate in 1991.
Thank you very much, lawyer Guled Dafa. And that was Guled Ahmed Dafa, a lawyer here in Hargeisa, speaking to us as Somaliland marked today 29 years since it came to be an existing country.